Hey there, Abiding fam, and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing the fourth flip through of my Abiding journal. If you haven't been with us since the start, welcome. It's a perfectly fine place to begin, but I will encourage you to go and check out the other flip throughs so you can catch up. Essentially, what we're doing is, for my Abiding journal, I've been journaling every single day, or at least having an entry for every single day of 2018. Currently, I have flip throughs for January, February, and March, and that means today we are flipping through April. So my room is all set up. I've got some nice hot apple cider here with some cinnamon, and I am ready to go. So let's jump right into April. So this flip through is going to start on April 1st, which happened to be Easter this year, and since I am a Christian, that's always obviously a very special day of the year for us. So I went ahead and just journaled about that on this journaling card here, and then I brought in some really pretty floral stickers and then also these photos of me and Jeannie. Since the weather was a little nicer, we were able to get outside that day and enjoy God's creation, so that was a really lovely day. Over here on the right, you can see an example of how when I don't have a whole ton going on, sometimes I'll divide a page into multiple days, so I have Monday and Tuesday on this entry. And these are very simple entries. Once again, I just brought in a few of the floral stickers from the same set to make it match. And I talked about When Calls the Heart because I love that show. Let me know in the comments if you watch When Calls the Heart. I'm very excited for the new season. And then over here, I wrote Where Are You Spring because I was definitely needing some sunshine back in my life. On this day, I tried to do some gold foil and it didn't work out as well as I had anticipated, but I think it still gives off the crown effect, especially with all of the other gold foil stickers and such. Since Ben and I had started watching that show, though we didn't get too into it, so it's a show that has been placed on the back burner for quite some time now. And then over here I just have some photos from my mom and I going out to my favorite restaurant, which is a Trinidadian restaurant, and finally had a reason to use this blah 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 sticker. It's one of those stickers I never thought I would really use, but it actually came in handy for this because all we did was talk all night during that dinner. So I had that entry. So over on this page, I talk about going to this meadery, but it's actually funny because if you read my text here, I say that this page is a lie. We went to the meadery on the 7th, but I mistakenly glued down all of these photos related to the meadery before realizing my mistake. So these photos actually relate to this day, so it's kind of reversed, but when you have those sorts of mistakes, you really just have to roll with it and not take it all too seriously. It really doesn't make that big of a deal. Anyways, I really liked how these two pages played off of each other with the gold. And then these two pages are honestly two of my favorites. Most of April, honestly, are some of my favorite entries happened in this month. So I'm a big fan of entries where I just kind of let my heart gush, and is mostly words upon words and a little bit less going on. So more journal than scrapbook, even though I do love my scrapbook entries as well. And just the more antique vintage vibe of these two entries I really love. And craft paper is a really great way to bring in that more rustic vintage vibe, so I love doing that, and you can see I brought it in here as well. Like I said, this was one of my favorite entries. And then my favorite part of this entry, which I did share with my patrons, is this adorable little bird that I watercolored. I was really happy with how that turned out. This is a palm warbler that I just used my watercolor pencils with, and I thought that turned out really well. And Ben and I are super into birding, so anytime I can kind of turn this into a nature journal and capture the things that we saw hiking is something I love to do, especially with birds, because it's something that's really difficult to capture on camera because they're usually far away and they move so fast. So I just think it adds a really neat personal touch when you draw out the wildlife that you see rather than just taking a photo of it. It can make it feel a little bit more special. Here again are some more simple pages, and you can see I just really like to keep the color palettes similar across the two pages. I have Monday and Tuesday over here, and this printable is actually from Allie Brown, And she puts out some great printables over on her Patreon page, and I really enjoy being a patron of hers. So I just can't recommend enough. Like, it doesn't have to be me, guys, that you're supporting, but if there's a YouTuber or somebody that is taking these creative endeavors and putting out free content for you and you want to somehow support them, this is the way to do it. Become a patron at whatever tier you feel comfortable with and support them in that way. It really does make the biggest difference in their lives. So I did do that for Allie Brown for a little bit because I really appreciate her content. Over here, there was this edible book contest in the library, so I took photos of all of the little book-related cakes that they created and made a little flip book of those. And then over here, I just really played off of this page with the color scheme, brought in a lot of the similar stickers, and also, again, some of the collage-like printable pieces that she had. This next entry, I love this little tip-in piece because it's a piece of acetate so you can see what's under it, like the little butterflies and this blue sky that I created. But over the top, I just wrote out my journaling over the acetate, so I thought that had a really neat touch. And then just all of the pretty floral pictures as the flowers began to bloom and spring has sprung. It was just such a lovely day to capture. Over here, I used some of my favorite botanical washi that I got from wish.com, and then just did some really big lettering of the preserve that we went to, with just a little journaling here in the corner. And one of my favorite things to do for dates to switch things up is to write the date on the photo itself. So this I actually did in PicCollage, which is an app, and I have a video on how to print photos that you can check out. And I do talk about how you can add text to your photos to do exactly that. So definitely check that video out if you're interested. And here is an entry that is all about the photos, speaking of. So this was such a fun day because on this day, Ben and I went caving. This was my first time caving and I had so much fun and we just got crazy dirty. And so here, if I flip this open, you can see that there is before, which I did write on the picture before, and after over here. So nice and clean, and then all sorts of muddy. And to write on my photos, I use this micro perm pen. So this is from Sakura, and it is a micro perm ultra fine pen, and it lets you write over any slick surface like acetate, as you saw in the previous page, over photos. And so I highly recommend this pen, and I will have it linked down below. So since this entry was so photo heavy, I did add a little tip in of this cool map because I thought it was neat because it kind of looks like it maps out the underground. And on the other side, I did all of my journaling. And we also on this day went to see A Quiet Place, which I was terrified of seeing, but Ben forced me to go see, and it actually ended up being one of my favorite movies of this year. It was amazing. So not as scary as I anticipated it would be. And I just did this fun little doodle in the center of the mountaintop and then being, of course, underground. So I thought that was a really cool way to center the page and tie it all together. Here we're back to the fun spring elements. So I just have some journaling under this journaling card, some stickers related to April showers and rain going away. This is a printable from my Patreon as well from March. And then over here, once again, I divided the page into 2 different days. And sometimes if I don't have a ton to journal about, I'll just create a list of things I'm grateful for that day. And so that's a really good tip if you're stuck on what to journal about. A gratitude list is always a good fallback. You cannot go wrong with just expressing what you're grateful for. This entry here is one of my favorites, and I actually have a journal with me for this entry, so I'll be sure to link it in the cards so you can check it out. It was my first time really using the Arteza Real Brush pens, and I love these pens. I've talked about them in that video, and I've talked about them in other videos as well. But these are so great, guys, if you want to get that watercolor look but want a little bit more control, and if you're somebody who wants a little bit more depth to your color. These are fantastic pens for that. So I used these to create the cover of this book that I had been reading. I spent all day reading this book and I absolutely loved it. It's called The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. And I do have a list on my Amazon shop of my favorite books, so if ever you're looking for a recommendation for a book to read, definitely check out that list. I do have my Amazon shop listed down below. I have lists for all sorts of things, but my book recommendations is one of my favorites that I like to update. So anyways, yes, I created that and then did the little star rating on the side. And it's just such a fun entry, so be sure to check out that journal with me. Over here, super simple, just brought over the little elements of the little slashes and tick marks that I created just to tie these pages together. I really love this page because it gives off this vintage vibe that I was going for, because on this day we went to an in-home concert at one of our friends' houses, and this friend of ours has the coolest collection of just vintage stuff. He really loves just the olden times and those bygone eras, and he has some really neat elements. So I made sure that in this page I brought out some different vintage pieces, like these little die cuts here and this guy with the shoe polish or whatever he's doing. And then I just love having the little botanicals that frame this collage of elements. I thought that turned out really well. And then this little element here that says going to or giving a concert is actually one of the illustrations from this calendar that you can get from Flow magazine that basically just lists things to be happy about. And so every now and then I'll cut out these if they really relate to an entry and use them in my journal. So pay attention to those sorts of things, because it doesn't always need to be something that is meant for journaling. Sometimes you might find in magazines, in calendars, in just paper bags that you get from different stores, you can find things that you really like that would work well in your journal too. So then over here I did another illustration of a bird. This one is a yellow rumped warbler, and this was just such a beautiful bird that we didn't expect to see, and I was really proud of myself because I actually identified this bird all by myself in looking up the description. So that's something I had never done before, so I was really proud to identify this on my own, and I just was really proud of how this illustration of that bird turned out. Over here I did a little watercolor of a branch and then just drew these little ribbons to make it look like these photos are hanging off of the branch. And then this map here at the bottom, and then this is actually a pocket because I only taped around the sides so that I could slide this piece in and out, and it just has another cute little photo. So this one was a little salamander that we saw, and then on the back I did some journaling. And I believe that this little tag is actually from the Flow book for paper lovers, and so I really enjoy that book for just having little elements as well. It's a really great thing to ask for Christmas. It's a great gift item if people aren't sure what to get you. The Flow book for paper lovers is probably a safe bet. Over here is a really good example of an entry where I was just not having much to write about, and so I just used this card that said find joy in the ordinary, and I just wrote down a few things that I was grateful for in a completely ordinary day. And I also really love this element because I wanted to tie the pages together. I took parts of this map and I cut out little pieces, or just ripped it really, I didn't cut it, I ripped little pieces and drew the leaves on it. So I thought that was a really fun way to tie that together and create more of a mixed media look rather than just doing it all as a doodle. So that's a fun thing you can do as well. So these pages are really fun. I love the mix of the hand lettering and the stickers and the cards, and then over here you can see that I have a little tag over here as well that I did some journaling on the back. And yeah, there's not much to say about these two entries other than I just really enjoy the way they turned out. And I love this word washi that I got from wish.com. I think it has a really fun vintage vibe. And as a writer, which you can see, these are actually stickers that I created. This was just a fun entry to create. This entry is a good example of using things from events. So this piece here, I actually cut out from the posters that they had put up for this event everywhere. And so I just took one of the posters because obviously after the event is done, they're not going to need it anymore. And I just cut it into pieces and used those in my journal. So that's something to be aware of that you can be thinking about using as well when you go to different events. See if there's any posters that they have, if they have menus, anything that's related to that event, because a lot of times they will have some kind of cohesive theme that you can then use to build your journal page from. And then over here is a really funny page. Because of my job, there are days where I just get a lot of free food because a lot of my job is going to different events. And so this was one of those days where I just wrote free food galore because I literally just went from one event to another that all had food at them. So these are the photos of those food expeditions that I went on. And then we're reaching the end here, guys. So my last 3 pages, which of course, for some reason, I always end on entries that aren't my favorite, but that's okay. So here is an example of an entry where I basically just talked about all the things I got done. So I just have a checklist of like, yes, look at all these things I accomplished. Over here, this page is mostly just stickers and a little bit of journaling. And I love these big stickers for the dates. I thought those turned out really nice. And then this last entry here is a great example of how you really don't need to always overthink what an entry is going to involve. I know I showed you guys a lot of journal with me's, and sometimes the things that I do are very involved, and that's okay. But there are plenty of examples of entries where I don't do much at all, and this is one of them. So for here, I literally just put down this photo. I have a little date sticker, a piece of washi that I wrote Monday on, and then 0 journaling. All I wrote was this, pointing to the granola bar, which is my all-time favorite granola bar ever, plus my laptop, which represents writing, plus a little tea bag equals a heart, which is obviously love. So this right here sums up that day without me saying really anything. And that's the thing with journaling. It doesn't always need to be super intricate language that you're using to describe your day. It doesn't need to be poetic. It doesn't need to be beautiful in the stickers and washi and all of the elements that you use. It just needs to represent you and your memories. So that's what I try and show you guys here on this channel, is that my journal is just a reflection of my year and my creativity. This is my personal journey through creativity. And so I encourage you to start creating, because that's the only way that you're going to discover your own abiding creativity and your own abiding memories and how they're going to bring you abiding joy. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the comments what your favorite entry was, what you learned from this video, if anything, and any tips that you have to give to our fellow abiding fam members. I'm sure they'd all appreciate it, and I'm sure I could learn from you as well. Be sure to subscribe. If you're not already, I'd love to have you be a part of our family here. And of course, if you're interested in supporting me even more, you can check out my Patreon, link down below. And the biggest thank you to all of my patrons. You all make this possible for me, and I'm so grateful for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this chatty flip through. I will be having a music quick flip through coming your way at some point as well for this TN insert. So stay on the lookout for that. And until then, I'll see you guys in my next video.